Hey guys, it's Michelle and I'm here with my November 2014 reading wrap-up. This month I was able to finish 9 books and 3 novellas, so I better get talking. First, I read The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey, and I'm so glad that I did. I ended up paying full price for the Kindle edition of the book, but I'm glad that I did. The synopsis is basically, there's a little girl named Melanie who's around 10 years old. She lives in a little cell, and every morning some security officers come in, point a gun at her head, and strap her into a wheelchair. They strap down her legs, her arms, even her neck. And she jokes that she won't bite, and they never laugh or talk back. And they wheel her into a classroom. And so you're just like, what is going on here? And then the story just develops from there. I don't want to give you any kind of spoilers or take any kind of chance, but there is so much that happens throughout this novel, and it's just fascinating, and I never knew what to expect, and I relished every moment of that. I ended up giving it 5 stars on Goodreads. It was a fascinating read that I just devoured. Next up, I read Half Bad by Sally Green, and I had kind of put this one off because there were mixed reviews when it came out, and I wasn't quite sure I wanted to read it. Then I got a good deal on it, so I went ahead and read it on the Kindle. And it follows Nathan. He is a witch, and his grandmother and his siblings are white witches, but he is half black. His father is the most notorious and powerful black witch. There is a huge ongoing conflict between black and white witches. The white witches have these hunters who it's their job to hunt down black witches. And they're very wary of Nathan as a half black, half white witch. He's the only one that's half black and half white. So in the story, Nathan has no idea who to trust, and people are trying to use him left and right. There is some violence and some abuse in the book, and so that may shy a few people away from it. I really loved the way that witches receive their gifts, and the other way that witches can receive gifts. You'll know what I mean if you read the book. I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads. Really enjoyed it. Then, through NetGalley, I got to read All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. And so this was a digital copy that I got free before the book comes out. It comes out January 6th, 2015. It follows Finch and Violet. They are 2 teenagers, and they meet on the 6th story of a building that they're both contemplating jumping off of. They go to the same high school, and they end up striking up a friendship, and they end up doing a class project together. And so their relationship grows from there, and they develop a romance. And it was billed as Eleanor and Park meets The Fault in Our Stars, and I thought, well, yeah, this is going to be a disappointment compared to those 2 books, but I adored every minute of it. I devoured it. I even had tears coming down in the beauty shop while I was reading it, waiting on my hair color to process. So, I wasn't sobbing or anything. I did keep my dignity, but I did have some redness going on, and yeah, looking all flushed. But anyway, luckily I don't wear mascara, so that was not an issue. It was very touching, all the feels. When I got back home, I was sobbing. I gave that 5 stars on Goodreads. Next, I was feeling a little more grown up, and I had a little bit of a push to read books that were written in 2014 while they are still new releases. So I picked up Colorless Tsukuru Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage by Haruki Murakami. I'm sure I butchered those names, but that's the best I can do. We follow Tsukuru in this story from the time he is a teenager, and he's going to do some volunteer work, and he really strikes up a good friendship with 2 guys and 2 girls. And so the 5 of them are this really unique band of friends, and they realize how valuable their friendship is. They don't want to jeopardize it by dating throughout the group or anything like that. So they don't. The other 4 end up staying in the area after they graduate, but Tsukuru moves to Tokyo, and after a while, the others stop communicating with him, and when he tries to contact them one by one, they all tell him that they don't want to have contact with him anymore. No explanation, and he has no idea why. So this has left him kind of emotionally stunted, and now he is in his 30s and trying to get into a relationship with a woman, and having to deal with all of this at that time. The way it was written was just really eerie and foreboding, and it brought up some philosophical issues, and it just dealt with things like rejection and self-esteem and revisiting the past to help you heal in the present. I thought it was pretty beautiful, and I do want to say that it is adult content only, so no kiddos on this one. It was 4 stars that I gave it on Goodreads. Then I picked up a book in Barnes & Noble, and I didn't quite realize how timely the publishing of this book was. This is a story of, what's his name? Tariq. He is a 16-year-old black male in the inner city, and he is gunned down in the streets by a white man. And so you can see it kind of has kind of a Ferguson feel to it. It seemed very relevant because of Ferguson. It is told in many, many, many different perspectives that really help you to understand how far-reaching the effects that one murder can be. And everyone really seems to have a different voice, and I loved that about the story. You, as the reader, kind of get a clear picture of how it went down, but none of the individuals giving their perspective in the book do. And so every time they add something, you can't really tell if it's clarifying the truth or obscuring the truth of what happened. So I loved that about it. It just shows that it really is hard to get a good picture of what happened if you weren't there for an event. This did nothing to lessen my skepticism of news broadcasts, and it really left me with the how well do you know anybody in your life type of a feeling. And I thought that was fascinating. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. Then I couldn't help myself. Liam was calling to me, and I decided to read Never Fade, the second book in the Darkest Minds trilogy by Alexandra Bracken. And I still love the characters, some of them even more now. There were some interesting new characters as well. But the lack of world building and the jerky pacing still continued to pull my overall enjoyment of the book down, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. I'm not sure if I'll ever read the last one or not. I'm kind of on the fence. So if you have any insight into that, feel free to encourage or discourage me in the comments. And next up, I read a sci-fi book by an author that I have previously read his fantasy series. And I knew it was sci-fi, and I knew it was kind of a coup that he pulled it off, getting to write sci-fi when he's kind of pigeonholed as a fantasy author. And so I expected the vibrant characters, I expected the realistic relationships, and because I'd read the synopsis, I expected a time travel, or at least an attempt at it. And what I was surprised by was how many cultural references there were in the book, and how relevant those were, and how many I could relate to. There were only a couple that I didn't really relate to. And how he used those to help explore some pretty major themes like love and religion and individuality and freedom versus government, just all kinds of stuff. And you really can't do that in a fantasy novel, so it really surprised me that this author had this other side in a pleasant way. It surprised me. So I also love the fact that he explained at the beginning in a disclaimer why he was using profanity, because he doesn't in his fantasy books, but it's not really relevant because it's not a present or futuristic setting. And he also goes into the publishing process of this particular book, which was also fascinating. So I really felt like me being surprised by everything that was included, I just really elevated this book to a 5. Without all that stuff, maybe a 4, but that pushed it to a 5 for me. Absolutely enjoyed it. It was a great story. Then I picked up Half Lies by Sally Green. I had no idea this novella was coming out. It is in the Half Bad world, and it takes place before Half Bad. It follows Gabriel, who Nathan meets as a black witch during Half Bad. And it also includes his sister, Michelle, and their father. It really helps shed some light on how bad the conflict is between the black and white witches, although it does nothing to reveal anything about how the conflict got started. And it really just, in his role as a brother, you really adore Gabriel even more than you already did from Half Bad. Next, I read Stolen Songbird by Danielle L. Jensen, and this is the first of a trilogy. And essentially in this story, a human girl is kidnapped and brought to the underground world where trolls live, and they force her to marry their prince, who doesn't want to marry her either. There is a prophecy that if the troll prince marries a daughter of the sun, that the curse on the trolls could be lifted, and then they wouldn't have to live underground anymore. That curse was put on them by a witch. It was a very complicated story. There was a lot of politics involved, and the characters really talked about those politics a whole lot in deciding what to do. There are lots of friends. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Tons of characters. I liked the magic system. I loved the characters. I even liked the angsty romance, although it got a little too angsty there at the end. But I did have an issue. The characters would sometimes go into these long deliberations about why they shouldn't take a particular action, give, lots of justification for not doing this, and then in the end kind of go, meh, I'm going to do it anyway. So that kind of bothered me, and I ended up giving it 3 stars, but it's really like 3.5, almost to 4 for me. So I'm really hoping to pick up the second book in that trilogy when it does come out. Then I was book shopping with one of my nieces. She needed something new to read for school, and she had something in mind, so I ran her to Barnes & Noble, and I found out that Peg Carrot has a new book out. And Peg Carrot is my favorite middle grade author. She wrote Stolen Children and Runaway Twin, both of which I love and love to read out loud to my 5th graders at school. So I was excited to see she has a new book, Dangerous Deception, out. And this follows Emmy. Emmy, I believe, is in 6th grade, and she finds out about a family that is really poor and needs food, and she's trying to work on a community project through one of her projects at school, and so she's got some teammates, and they decide to collect food and take to them. But they don't tell their parents, and they go into kind of a bad neighborhood, and a dangerous situation develops. What I love about Peg Carrot's books is the children get into dangerous situations, and it causes a lot of suspense, but it's never anything that the kids are doing that's, unrealistic. It's all plausible. Like, a kid really could end up in a situation like this. So, and I love how she has this ability to draw out the suspense where you think they're going to get rescued, and then, no, they don't. And then you think they are, and then, no, that doesn't work out either. So I love her ability to do that, and I loved Emmy. And it wouldn't be a Peg Carrot book without pets in it. So, of course, there is a black cat named Midnight in this book. And Emmy has a dog as well. Ended up giving this 4 stars on Goodreads. And then I really don't know what got into me. I read Shatter Me earlier this year and really just couldn't get into it. Yeah, I know. Some people love it. I'm not one of them. Somehow I got it in my head that I needed to read Destroy Me. I don't even know how it happened. I don't know what sparked it. I don't know what triggered it. Might have been Witty Novels, now that I think about it. I follow her on Twitter. It was probably related. And so I got to know Julia and Warner a lot better. But they're both terribly broken people, and I don't know how either one of them could ever be in a healthy relationship, let alone together. And so I'm skeptical to move forward. It was just a novella, so it was over quickly, but I mean, it was haunting and poetic, and I totally appreciated it, but I didn't enjoy it because it's just disturbing on some level. So I ended up giving it 3 stars on Goodreads. And then I picked up another novella that I had no idea that was coming out because I think the author kept it a secret until it came out. But earlier in the year, I read Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover, and I loved it. So she came out with a novella that follows Warren and Bridget, who lived in the same apartment, 4-bedroom apartment, with Ridge in Maybe Someday, and eventually Sydney too. But it was so funny. I mean, it was so funny to get Warren's perspective. And you find out why he was watching all that adult stuff. There was actually a reason behind it, which was hilarious. And I loved every scene that was like already in Maybe Someday, but this time it was from Warren's perspective. That just added a layer of richness to it. And I ended up giving it 5 stars on Goodreads because it was very fun to read. So happy reading, and thanks for watching.